No one noticed him. Not in school, not at work, not even in the small apartment complex where he lived. Every morning at 5:12 a.m., the same alarm rang, and every morning he hit snooze, not because he was lazy, but because his body was exhausted from a life that gave nothing back. His name was Ethan Walker. An ordinary name, an ordinary face, an ordinary life. At least that's what the world saw. Ethan worked at a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, where dreams had no value and speed mattered more than purpose. 8 hours a day, sometimes 10, sometimes 12. By the time he got home, the sun was gone, and so was his energy. He ate cheap food, slept on a worn-out mattress, and stared at the ceiling every night, asking himself, "Is this all my life will ever be?" Deep inside him lived a dream. Not loud, not flashy, just a quiet, stubborn dream that refused to die. He wanted to build something meaningful, something that proved his life mattered. But dreams are dangerous when you're broke, because dreams don't pay rent, and they don't silence people who say, "Be realistic." His own father used to tell him, "Dreams are for lucky people. We survive. That's enough." And for a long time, Ethan believed it, until one cold, rainy night, walking home from a double shift, his phone buzzed with a bank notification, insufficient funds, and under a flickering streetlight, soaked in rain, something inside him finally broke. Not anger, not sadness, just pure exhaustion, and he whispered, "I can't do this forever." That night, he didn't sleep. Instead, he opened his old laptop with the cracked screen and typed words he had been afraid to type for years: how to change your life from nothing. He tried everything: online courses, business ideas, late-night learning, and he failed again and again. His first idea failed. The second failed worse. The third wiped out his tiny savings, and people laughed, saying, "You're not that guy. Just stick to your job. At least it's stable." But that word started to feel like a prison. Months turned into years, and Ethan was still broke, still tired, still invisible. And one night, staring at the same ceiling, he thought, maybe they're right. Maybe this is all I am. Everything changed on a random Tuesday, not with a miracle, but with a video he almost skipped, where the speaker said, "If you don't quit, you haven't failed yet." And that sentence hit him harder than anything before, because in that moment he realized he wasn't failing because he lacked talent. He was failing because he quit emotionally every time life pushed back. And that night he made one rule: no matter what, don't quit. He changed his routine slowly, waking up earlier, learning before work, working after work. While others slept, he studied. While others complained, he built, with no applause, no encouragement, just silence. Weeks turned into months. His body hurt, his mind doubted, but something new grew inside him: self-respect. Then life tested him again when he was laid off without warning, handed a box and a forced smile. And that night, sitting alone in his dark apartment with rent due and no income, he almost quit for real. But he remembered his rule: don't quit. With his last money, Ethan invested in himself, doubled down, failed again, but learned faster. And one day, a simple email arrived, a small opportunity, a tiny win. Not success, but proof that someone believed in his work. And that changed everything. One client became two, two became five, and money slowly followed effort. Not millions, but enough to breathe, enough to believe. Years passed, and one day Ethan stood in an office he owned, looking out the window, smiling, not because he was rich, but because he didn't quit. And if you're watching this right now, feeling tired, behind, or invisible, remember Ethan. He wasn't special, he wasn't lucky, he was relentless. And if he can rise from nothing, so can you. This is not the end of your story. This is the moment you decide. Never give up.
And even after all that, Ethan knew the journey wasn't over, because success doesn't mean life stops testing you. It only changes the level of the test. There were nights when doubt still knocked on his door, whispering, "What if this disappears? What if you fail again?" But this time, he didn't run from those thoughts. He faced them, because he had learned that fear never leaves. It only loses power when you move forward anyway. He remembered every ignored message, every rejection, every moment he felt invisible, And instead of hating those memories, he used them as fuel, because pain, when used correctly, becomes power. Ethan understood something most people never do, that motivation fades, but discipline stays, that talent is common, but persistence is rare, and that the real difference between winners and quitters is not strength or intelligence, but the decision to stand up one more time than you fall. He stopped waiting for perfect conditions, stopped waiting for confidence, and realized confidence is built by action, not before it. Day by day, he showed up, even when results were slow, even when nobody clapped, even when progress felt invisible, because he finally understood that the grind you hate today builds the life you want tomorrow. And if you're listening to this right now, feeling stuck, tired, or doubting yourself, know this: your current situation is not your final destination. Your past does not define your potential, and your struggle is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're being prepared for something bigger. Remember, the world will doubt you, people will underestimate you, and life will push you to quit. But none of that matters if you refuse to give up on yourself. Because the moment you decide to keep going when everything says stop is the moment your story begins to change. And one day, sooner than you think, you'll look back at this version of yourself and realize that the pain, the loneliness, and the struggle were not there to break you. They were there to build you into the person you were always meant to become.